I am on a mission on this subject, and I'm dead serious. How might we arrive in every conversation with the right story at the right time for the right reasons? That's what I wrote a book about, and I'm on a mission in my life to get people better at this. Your ability to tell the right story at the right time for the right reason in a sales meeting or in a leadership situation or in a tough conversation with your spouse or partner, your ability to tell the right story at the right time for the right reason is your most powerful tool of persuasion. Not one of. It is the most powerful tool of persuasion we know as human beings. But then somehow we put on business clothes and we go to meetings and it's like, well, let me show you these 95 PowerPoint slides and everybody goes to sleep. Why would you do that when there's such a better way? We've worked with Google, we've worked with huge companies, and we say to them, stop with the slides. You can have 10. And they're like, 10? Yeah. Are you out of your mind? And we say the rest of it is storytelling. I think one of the things that I certainly got wrong in my sales career early on was I thought that the craft of selling was showing up and talking about my solution.
Esta miniserie fue grabada en Perspectives, un evento de Collective Academy que reúne a líderes de diferentes industrias para discutir sobre inteligencia artificial y su impacto en el futuro de las organizaciones. Esperamos que encuentres tanto valor como nosotros lo hicimos. Te dejamos con el episodio.
Greg, welcome. Welcome to the Mentors. Thank you for your time. The first thing I want to know is you teach selling to thousands of entrepreneurs and people in different universities and in companies. What's the one thing you think that people get wrong most constantly about sales?
Diego, it's a great question. And by the way, thank you for having me. It's fun to be here with you. I do. I teach sales a lot to, just as you said, at the business school, at corporations, everything, entrepreneurs, everything in between. I think one of the things that I certainly got wrong in my sales career early on was I thought that the craft of selling was showing up and talking about my solution. Okay. And as I get a little older and maybe a little bit more experienced, and I spend a lot of time with great people like you and students in my classroom, I realized that it's really what we define as sales at Kellogg, at the school that I get to lead the Sales Institute at, and my company is helping people make progress in their lives. And what that means is we need to discover with each and every interaction and each and every relationship, what is the progress you're trying to make? And that dictates that we ask questions. It's a mindset, right? Okay. So we ask questions, we stay in the question, we probe deeper, we try to understand more widely. Mm-hmm. Man, it took me a long time to learn that.
Okay, but it's easier said than done, I think.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to get technical, but now that you say it, I'm going to get a little bit technical with one thing specific. Something that tends to happen in sales is you go and like you come to the call and you want to ask questions, right?
Right.
But then if I'm the prospect or the client, sometimes I might go like, yeah, just tell me about the product, right? Like sure. I don't want to answer questions. Right. Just let me, what's the price, or what's the product? Yeah. How do you manage that type of interaction?
It's a great question. So
I know it's technical now, but
no, it's the appropriate question. So I have two ways into that. First of all, one is if someone looks you in the eye, which I'm not sure that happens exactly like that many times out of 100, but let's say they do, like they just look at it, tell me about the solution. You tell them about the solution, right? Okay. That's your move, your best move. But the answer I like better, Diego, is as you're entering your sales process, in other words, as you're entering a relationship with someone, to be able to say to them, to have the discipline to say to them, hey, Diego, as we get to know each other, one of the things that I want to do here is really understand what's going on here, what progress you're trying to make, what you're trying to do for the company, what the stakeholders around you are trying to do, what progress they're trying to make. And what that's going to take is for me to ask you a lot of questions. If you ever get tired of my questions and you need me to jump right to something, I will do that. Okay. But just not. So you see what I'm doing, right? Yeah. I'm setting expectations that this is the way we're going to roll. But look, if you look me in the eye and say, Craig, get after it, I'm going to get after it. No problem. Right. But then once I do, I'm going to say, now, may I ask you some more questions?
Okay. Yeah. Like it's in your best interest. I'm here for you, right?
Yeah.
So just to continue in that line, what happens with friends? Like something that people tend to say is when you befriend someone, it tends to be easier to do business, kind of, like especially in Latin America.
You bet.
If you're friends with someone inside the company and you offer some type of service, it's easier they would choose you over someone else. But at the same time, I find it hard to sell something to a friend because it's your friend, you know, and instead of like you have this relationship where you talk about anything and every time or whatever, and how do you change your cap to, okay, now we're gonna do like the sales process, right? So I'm gonna do the questions. Like how do you manage that? And also if what you sell has a high ticket, I don't want to say expensive or cheap, but like a higher ticket.
Sure.
How do you manage to sell that to a friend, or how would you approach it? Because your friends are the last ones. Like you might be the best at what you do right now,
sure,
but your friends that know you from forever, it's like, who do you think you are? I know you like since you were like a little kid, right?
Yep.
So they might have this different way of looking at you. So how would you approach something like that?
Well, I'm smiling because you're partially answering your own question.
Okay.
Which, by the way, is a sign of genius. So, but you really, no, I'm dead serious. You really are. So here's how I would tackle that. And the reason I say, Diego, that you're partially answering your own question is what you said right there in your question is you said something like, you know, how do you say to your friends, like, you know, I have to, but I'm this is my business and I'm doing this. What you're doing, again, is setting expectations.
Okay.
So what you always want to do with your friend is say, look, first and foremost, we're friends. And what that means is I'm always going to go above and beyond for you. I will always run through a wall for you. Okay. Now, what you also need to know, this is the other side. Okay. What you also need to know is I have a fiduciary responsibility in my business. I've got to grow that. And that means that we are premium priced. This is not cheap. And I'm going to be looking you dead in the eye and asking for what I deserve with this solution. Right? Like, so there's both, right? Why can't we as friends have both conversations?
Things can exist at the same time.
This is a weird sort of leap to a different subject for a second, Diego, but I've been finding myself a lot with our clients, our sales engine clients, my company, and with my Kellogg students, talking a lot about as you lead people and you lead companies as a CEO, one of the mistakes that CEOs make, and I've made this a couple times over in a couple of my companies, is I want to be liked by everybody.
Yeah.
I want to be that friend. And it's not about being a friend. It's about knowing that I always have your back. As you know, I'm your leader, but I've always got your back. I will run through a wall for you. But there's a distance between us because I also have to ask you to do really hard things. And some days you're not going to like me. It's tough love. I use that phrase all the time because there's tough, and we got to talk about what the tough is, and then we can talk about the love. And the love is easy to talk about.
All right.
Right? Because you know we love each other, and we're all in this together. That's the easy stuff. What people don't do well is the tough. What does tough look like?
Okay.
Yeah.
How I know you also teach storytelling.
Yes.
And when we hear about storytelling, we tend to listen to people talk about advertising or movies, right? But not so much on the business part, and especially not in sales. It's not like the common conversation. How do you apply it in sales? Like, what would your approach be, or how would you invite people to think about stories in the context of selling something?
I am on a mission on this subject, and I'm dead serious. I wrote a book a while back called What's Your Story? And it's a book about stories in business. And so you nailed it. We often think about Hollywood or we think about advertising, and those are stories, absolutely wonderful stories. But how might we arrive to every conversation, whether it's on Zoom, you know, on whatever, or whether it's face-to-face, how might we arrive in every conversation with the right story at the right time for the right reasons? That's what I wrote a book about. And I'm on a mission in my life to get people better at this. Here's what we know from research, about 6.5 decades worth of research. Your ability to tell the right story at the right time for the right reason in a sales meeting or in a leadership situation or in a tough conversation with your spouse or partner, your ability to tell the right story at the right time for the right reason is your most powerful tool of persuasion.
Okay.
Not one of. It is the most powerful tool of persuasion we know as human beings. If you think about it, you and I, we as human beings have been telling stories for 100,000 years.
It's a skill everyone can do,
right? And we can, but then somehow we put on business clothes and we go to meetings and it's like, well, let me show you these 95 PowerPoint slides and everybody goes to sleep. Why would you do that when there's such a better way?
Okay.
We've worked with Google, we've worked with huge companies, and we say to them, stop with the slides. You can have 10. And they're like, 10?
Yeah.
Are you out of your mind? And we say the rest of it is storytelling and asking questions and probing and understanding. That's what it's about.
And what could be an example of this type of story? Like can you kind of establish a situation and tell me what type, like how can I picture this type of story? Not the Hollywood story, not like how does it look like?
What it looks like is, in my book, I talk about there are 4 types of stories that we should be telling as leaders, as salespeople, as just people. We should be telling success stories. I'm trying to sell you something. Of course, I want to tell you a success story, but guess what I'm also going to do? In the process of selling you, I'm going to tell you a failure story.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you a failure story of me. When I failed, Craig failed. I've failed many, many times in my life. I'm going to tell you a failure story. Why would I tell you a failure story? Because it demonstrates that I'm coachable, that I'm learning, I'm still learning, and that I have made these mistakes that I won't make again. If I can articulate the mistakes I've made in the form of a failure story, you're pretty sure I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'll make new mistakes, but not that one.
Should I tell a story that I haven't solved, like a failure I haven't recovered from?
You might. I mean, think about so you walk into a situation, you're selling me something or leading me or whatever the context is, and I don't know you that well, and you tell me that story, and the story's not over yet. You're like, I'm living this failure in real time. But here's what I'm doing about it. Here's what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay.
What I'm actually thinking about you, and again, we know this from research, what I'm thinking about you is, wow, this guy's humble. He's a learner.
Yeah.
He is honest. Wouldn't you love to have people say those things about you every day? Sure. I would.
Yeah.
And guess what they do when they think those things? They buy from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though you just told me a failure story, right? So success, failure, fun. Tell fun stories because we got to have fun.
Yeah.
Life's to be enjoyed too, right?
Yeah.
And then what we call legends. And so every culture, every country culture, every company culture has legends.
Yeah.
You also have a legend. I have a legend of me. It's your origin story. Why am I here?
Okay.
Why am I a professor at Kellogg? Why did I start my 3rd business? That's my origin story.
Okay.
And so that's a, quote unquote legend. I'm not a legend, but it's a quote unquote legend of me.
If I had to choose one, I want to sell myself better, or I want to start selling my business better, what should be one story that everyone should have, no matter what? Like, start from somewhere.
Can I cheat your question and say 2?
Okay,
can I give you 2?
Yeah, you can do
that. I can't limit it at 1. So, and we just talked about them. If I had 2 and only 2 stories to enter every room with, one would be my origin story. Why am I here? Okay. Because that tells you a lot about me. Whether you like me at the end of that story or not like me at the end of the story, it tells you who I am and why I'm here, and you could start deciding, do I like this guy and want to do business with him, or is this guy not my cup of tea? Either one is fine. Yeah. We always say opt in, opt out, either one is fine. Okay. And I would tell a failure story. Okay. So it's a weird choice, right? If I have 2 stories that I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you an origin story and I'm going to tell you a failure story.
That's true. And do you change the length of the story? Like, is it something I can modify? Because some objection, sometimes the objection that I sometimes get when I talk about telling stories is like, yeah, but I'm in a meeting, or I have like 5 minutes to present whatever. I won't say a story. Or it always happens when people present themselves in a business setting. Like everyone tell who they are and stuff, and they'll just go like, I'm Diego and I do this thing, and they never say like a little bit more. So
such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, what should you like? There's 2 questions in this. What should you do in that situation? Like, how can I present myself better? Yep. And can I have like this story that I modify, or is it like a fixed thing?
No, it's modified. So I'll go backwards through those. Okay. So it's your stories are editable. They are changeable. If you are, let's imagine that you and I are sitting around a table and everybody's introducing themselves and they're doing it the usual boring way. I'm Craig. I've been with Kellogg for 8 years. I teach sales and communication. Like the world's most boring introduction, right? That's what everybody does. Yeah. Every single day in the world, that's what people do. Why would you do that? So let's say we're going around and everybody does that. Well, you're not going to get up and tell an 11-minute story. Exactly. That would be the opposite problem. People would be like, who is this guy? Like, well, go away, right? But could you tell a 20-second story? That's about as long as my boring introduction. Then Diego gets up and says, you know what? I'm Diego. I'm pleased to be here. I got here 2 years ago, and I got here in a weird way. I got here because I was inspired by the mission of this company, and I'm psyched to be a part of this meeting. Yeah. That's it. I mean, that is a story. Yeah. It's just a really short story. There's not a ton of moving parts, but it makes you all of a sudden people like,
it's really different from everyone else.
This guy's different. I like him already. Yeah. And you're never going to win everybody. So I want to be careful here because I've done that 100,000 times in my life since I learned all this. And I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Some people are like,
there's always someone, but
yeah.
it could be how you're dressed or how you talk.
Of
or
course, that's always.
They will always find something that's wrong with you. But I really like your way of approaching it, and I really think it's really clear. Above all, I'm going to change a little bit of lanes and talk about you lost your leg, right?
I did.
And you developed like a system of resilience.
Yes.
Can you talk me a little bit about that and how can someone apply it to their life? I know it's like
you bet.
I'll get like the 30-second version of that, but
yeah, it's a very long story. So 2 years ago, I lost my leg to cancer. It was just one of those hit by a bus moments in your life where it's just the research calls these life quakes. In any normal adult life, that if we're lucky enough to live to our elder years, any adult life will experience 36 periods of transition. 3 to 5 of them are what the research calls life quakes. They're the big ones: death of a loved one, loss of a company, loss of a leg. So they don't have to be health related, but big ones. And then the other 30-ish are, you have a bad breakup with a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever.
Yeah.
You lose a job. They're still big and they hurt like hell, but
Yeah.
So when I lost my leg as a career entrepreneur and a career sales guy, I will admit to you, I sort of arrogantly thought I knew a thing or two about resilience.
Okay.
And man, there's nothing like waking up in a hospital room with one leg. I mean, there's nothing like it. I was a marathoner, like I'm a really active guy. It was devastating.
You didn't expect it was going to be so bad?
I didn't, because I thought I'm resilient, and it's a whole different universe. So what I did is,
and at the same time, sorry to interrupt you, but this is something really important for me to understand. At the same time that you were like having a really bad time knowing you lost your leg, were you also aware that you had your life, like it could have been worse? Like instead of losing my life, I just lost my leg. Like, were you in the same, were conscious of both things?
Yeah.
Or
I was, and actually, you're actually getting into the process of resilience with that question,
okay.
and here's why. So yeah, I was conscious, and look, I'm a very lucky guy. I have a wonderful family and support system, and I have this amazing company. And so I'm a lucky guy. I have 3 really cool jobs, right? And a great family, so I'm lucky. And I knew that, but the devastation of losing a leg and literally not being able to walk across the room, which is very strange. Imagine not being able to walk across this room. It's hard, right? Yeah. And so what I did is I put my professor hat on and I went to work. I did research on resilience, and I read research into resilience, obviously, decision-making, post-traumatic stress disorder, something called post-traumatic growth, mindset, and a whole bunch of other things, like a whole bunch of bodies of research, 6 or 7. And I started to develop a process for myself. I call it Bounce Back Better. And the reason I say that you were alluding to it, it's 3 phases: bounce, back, and better. Each phase has 2 steps. And in the first phase, bounce, which is the hardest, you've fallen on the pavement, you've smacked your face on the pavement, your nose is bloody, your jaw's broken, it's not fun, right? You're down. But what I always say to people is, you do bounce, and here's how you bounce. You acknowledge that you're in a really terrible situation. You acknowledge the fact that you've face planted on the pavement, or you've lost your job, or you've lost your company, or whatever, you lost your leg. And then the next thing you do is you start to try to reframe those negative labels into positive forward motion. Really hard to do because it feels a little, there's an English term for this, like Pollyanna-ish. It feels a little cheesy, like, okay, I've lost my leg, but
like hypocritical.
But what's the positive label? Like, I have a hard time coming up with a positive label for that.
I just need one shoe, and whatever that.
Right.
That
I need one shoe. I only need one shoe now, right? Or and this was one of mine. Like, one of these days when my leg heals, I'm gonna get a bionic leg, and I'm gonna learn how to use it.
Yeah.
That's a positive label. It's not negative. One of the things where we get in trouble with resilience in any issue that we face, any transition in life, is what the psychologists call, there's a swirl of negative thoughts in your head. I'll never be, I'll never do, I can't ever. And it's all this negative self-talk. And it's valid. That's the weird thing about it. It's valid. Like, I'm never gonna be normal again, right? That's just a reality that I now live with. However, how might I change that swirl in my head to try to start to create positive forward motion? And then the rest of the process, which I won't bore you with, but the rest of the process kicks in. And it's really about actions. Actions must be surrounded by coaches. And those actions and coaches beget goal setting. And your goals get bigger and bigger over time.
Okay, and is this something I could prevent? Kind of like like, is this something you could have worked with before
Yes.
having this situation happen?
So we have a whole bunch of tools that we've developed, and with one of my friends at Google, an amazing leader at Google in Dublin, Ireland, we've developed a building preemptive resilience tool. So ways to think about, what are the things I can do now? You know, when I have two good legs, what are the things I could do now that if I ever lose my job, if I ever whatever, what could I do now that would build the muscles of resilience so I'm more ready? Doesn't mean bad. You're still not going to have a tough time.
Yeah,
you
like
are.
the Mike Tyson quote, right? That everyone has a plan until they get hit in the
Punched in
face.
the face.
But anyways, there's like a way of kind of exercising that muscle of being ready for whatever happens.
Absolutely.
But and how? I'm almost on my last questions. But how do you avoid being ready for when something wrong happens to becoming this kind of negative person, or always, you know, having like a not being able to enjoy the time because you know, like, this I might lose this, you know, or this might be temporary or whatever. Yeah. Because sometimes I feel like stoicism is in fashion, like everyone is talking about stoicism and stuff, but I think sometimes it can turn into that. Like, if I'm always ready to die or you know, but
it's a tough question because I think there you have to wrangle your mindset. You have to wrestle your mindset into a place to say, okay, what is preemptive resilience? And we can name some things that are going to be obvious to you and your audience, which is, you know, I work out every day. Mm-hmm. And I do that because I know that builds preemptive. Like, if I fall on hard times, or I get depressed, or I lose my leg or whatever, those past workouts are really going to help me out. Yeah. But notice, that's not negative. I'm not dreading work. Like, I enjoy working out, right? Yeah. And it's good for me. And I feel great when I've worked out every morning. Like, I feel great going to work. Yeah. And so that's not negative at all. There is an aspect, though, to be honest, there's an aspect of looking out and saying, okay, what bad could happen? And in that moment, you sort of have to embrace the negativity, but that's a moment.
Yeah,
that's not your whole day.
I think what you're saying, like, I can see that part, that in the end, after I prepare for that thing, I enjoy it. You know, it's not like I'm building a bunker in case something in case something happens, but I'm just like reliving like a bad thing and being like, I say, scared of everything. It's the other way around. Like, if for me, building a bunker for myself makes me happy and I have joy with this and I have a great time, okay, that might be, but it's like the difference is if I end up enjoying it or having like
I think that's a good reframing of it.
Feeling in the end of my preparation. Okay, so my last question for you today, Craig, is what could be a start, like a first thing I can do to start moving forward, like into, like, imagine someone is seeing this and thinking, okay, I would love to think like Craig thinks, right? Or I would love to reach his level in everything, because you do sales, you do communication, and you have this resilience part. And it seems like it's a bunch of things at the same time with a lot of years compounded. But if I see you like some sort of role model, like, okay, I wish I could be able to do that, where can I start? Like, can you give me like some tangible things, or even like resources that I could check out to start in the right path?
I can give you some resources. Where my mind goes, Diego, on this question is always and forever build your network. The only way I got to where I am now with my 3 crazy jobs is by being a good networker. Okay. And what that means is, tactically, week by week, make sure you're reaching out to, 2, 3, 4 people who you are having coffees with. I mean, I'm in Mexico City today. I'm literally doing this tonight. I'm networking with a guy that I am a friend of mine in Mexico City. Okay. Why would I go back to my hotel and go to bed if I can do that? Because that makes me and him more memorable to each other. If you do that 2, 3, 4 times a week for weeks and weeks and even years, you end up at a place that you can't recognize, and it's an awesome place.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much, Craig.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's super fun.